My daughter said her dad's new wife was better than me, called me a failure in public, until I took back everything I paid for and taught her a lesson she'll never forget. My name is Rachel. I am 42 years old, and I have worked as an accountant for more than 20 years. Until 3 days ago, I honestly believed I was a failure, or at least, that was what my daughter, Emma, kept making me feel every time she opened her mouth. Today, as I sit here writing this, I am in my renovated apartment, drinking wine that costs more than I used to spend on myself in an entire month. And I can say with absolute certainty now, I was not the failure in this story. It started on a Tuesday in March, at La Paloma, a Mexican restaurant downtown. I had invited Emma to lunch because I was desperate to reconnect with her. Our relationship had been growing colder with every phone call, every short reply, every canceled plan. And I thought, maybe if we sat across from each other, just the two of us, I could reach her again. Emma was in her second year at Northwestern University, a school I paid for religiously. $28,000 a year came out of my hard-earned accountant's salary so she could study there without drowning in debt. I never complained about it. I told myself that was what mothers did. She arrived 20 minutes late, as usual, wearing a dress I did not recognize. It was probably a gift from Olivia, my ex-husband Matthew's new wife. Emma barely greeted me. She slid into the chair across from me, already looking down at her phone, tapping at the screen like I was some inconvenient interruption in her very important life. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the car," she said, without even looking up. I already felt my stomach tighten. "What about the car? That Toyota you gave me is embarrassing me on campus." Olivia said, "She can help me get something better." That car was a 2019 Toyota Corolla. It was not new, no, but it was clean, safe, reliable, and in perfect condition. It had cost me $15,000 from my savings. Savings I had built little by little, skipping vacations, dinners, new clothes, and almost anything that was not necessary. "Emma," I said carefully, "that car is reliable and safe. You should be grateful for it." Grateful? That was when she finally looked up from her phone. The expression in her eyes cut me like a knife. "Mom, you don't understand. Olivia drives a convertible Mercedes. She understands what it means to have style. Unlike you." I tried to stay calm. I really did. The waitress came over, and I ordered our drinks, as if my daughter had not just humiliated me in the middle of a restaurant. But Emma was not finished. For the next 40 minutes, while we ate, she compared every part of my life to Olivia's. My modest two-bedroom apartment against the mansion Matthew and Olivia had bought. My practical Target clothes against Olivia's designer outfits. My useful gifts, like books, winter coats, and things she actually needed, against Olivia's expensive spa days and boutique shopping trips. "You know, Mom," Emma said, chewing her quesadilla like she was discussing the weather. "Sometimes I wonder how you and Dad even ended up together. He clearly evolved. He found someone who understands what success in life is. Olivia has class. She has ambition. She's not a failure like—" She stopped. She looked around and realized other people were listening, but the damage was already done. The word hung between us. Failure. It echoed across the table like a slap in the face. Like me. I finished for her, my voice lower than I intended. Emma shrugged, as if she had only stated an obvious fact. "Don't take it personally, Mom. It's just that Olivia really has it all together. She's inspiring." I paid the bill in silence. I ignored the curious glances from the other customers. I drove Emma back to her dorm without saying a word. My hands trembled on the steering wheel the entire way. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the piles of bills I paid every month. Emma's tuition, Emma's health insurance, Emma's car insurance, Emma's phone, Emma's emergency credit card, which apparently had been used for emergencies like expensive clothes and dinners at restaurants I could never afford for myself. And sitting there in that quiet kitchen, I finally understood something I had been denying for 4 years. 4 years. That was how long it had been since Matthew left me for Olivia, his 28-year-old secretary. 4 years since my life had become a constant cycle of bills, divorce agreements, educational expenses, and the slow erosion of my self-esteem. 4 years of watching Matthew rebuild his life with a woman who had not contributed one penny to raising our daughter, yet somehow now enjoyed all the benefits of being the fun mother figure. I remember the day Matthew left me with painful clarity. I was planning Emma's 16th birthday party, worrying about the cake, the decorations, the guest list, every little detail. Then he simply announced that he had found his true happiness. Olivia was pregnant. A pregnancy I later discovered had begun months before he told me about the affair. The divorce was brutal. Matthew, who had been a mediocre husband and an absent father, suddenly became Father of the Year on paper. He fought for custody, not because he suddenly wanted to parent Emma, but because Olivia had painted some fantasy in his mind about having the perfect blended family. In the end, we had shared custody. But in practice, Emma spent more and more time at his house. The house I had helped pay for during 15 years of marriage became Matthew and Olivia's property. I moved into a rented apartment and watched my teenage daughter become dazzled by the glamorous life Olivia offered. Spa days, designer shopping, resort vacations, five-star restaurant lunches, all supposedly funded by Matthew's salary as a sales manager, the same job he had throughout our marriage, though now it somehow seemed to produce far more money than it ever had when I was the wife managing the household budget. What Emma did not know, and what I had never had the courage to tell her, was that I paid for much more than her education. The divorce agreement said I would pay child support until she turned 21, along with all medical, educational, and transportation expenses. Matthew contributed $300 a month. $300. That barely covered 1 week of Emma's actual expenses. While Olivia flaunted $1,000 dresses and took Emma to fancy lunches, I worked overtime to keep my daughter's health insurance active. While they posted smiling pictures from luxury spas on Instagram, I saved every penny to make sure Emma had everything she needed at university. But in Emma's mind, I was the failure. I was the mother who gave boring gifts like books and practical clothes. I was the one who worried about budgets, bank accounts, deadlines, tuition payments, insurance renewals, and responsibility. I was the one who said no when she wanted something extravagant. Olivia was the one who said yes to everything, because Olivia never had to pay the real bills. That night, after the humiliating lunch, I did something I had never done before. I called my sister Megan in Portland, and I told her everything. For 2 hours, I poured it all out. Years of unrecognized sacrifices. Years of being treated like an emotional ATM. Years of watching my daughter despise me while idolizing a woman who had never sacrificed anything for her. "Rachel," Megan said, her voice firm through the phone. "You realize you're being used, don't you? You realize they created a system where you pay for everything, and Olivia takes all the credit." I knew. Deep down, I had always known. But admitting it meant admitting something painful. It meant admitting that I had raised a daughter who did not respect me. It meant admitting that 20 years of sacrifices had been treated as invisible. It meant accepting that the child I had built my life around now saw me as something small, embarrassing, and disposable. "What do I do, Megan?" I whispered. "She's my daughter. I can't just stop." "Of course you can," Megan interrupted. "Emma is 20, Rachel. She is an adult. And adults need to understand that actions have consequences." I hung up around 2 in the morning, but I could not sleep. I sat in the kitchen drinking tea, staring at my open laptop. On the screen were all the accounts I managed every month. University tuition, car insurance, health insurance, credit cards, payment portals, automatic transfers. All the silent machinery that kept Emma's comfortable life running. At 4 in the morning, I made a decision that would change all of our lives forever. I opened each account and started making changes. I canceled the additional credit card. I called the university and froze future payments. I canceled the car insurance. And finally, I opened the tracking app and located the Toyota. It was parked exactly where it should have been, outside Emma's dorm. At 6 in the morning, I drove to Northwestern with a tow truck I had hired. I found the car exactly where the GPS said it was. Using my spare key, I opened it, started it, and loaded it onto the tow truck. A few students looked over curiously, but nobody questioned a middle-aged woman recovering her own vehicle. When I got home, dawn was just breaking. I put the Toyota keys in the kitchen drawer and went to take a shower. And for the first time in 4 years, I felt something I had almost forgotten existed. Control. I was in control of my own life. The first call came at 9 in the morning. Emma was hysterical. "Mom, my card isn't working. I tried to buy coffee, and it was declined. And where's my car? It's not in the parking lot." I was at the office, reviewing tax spreadsheets, when I answered. My voice came out calmer than I expected. "I canceled the card, Emma, and I recovered the car." "What? You can't do that. I need those things." "Do you need them, or do you want them?" I asked, continuing to type. Because from what I understood yesterday, I'm just a failure who doesn't understand anything about success in life. So I thought maybe Olivia, who is so successful and inspiring, could help with those responsibilities. There was silence on the other end. Then came the crying. Not the crying of a hurt child, no. This was the manipulative crying Emma had perfected as a teenager whenever she wanted me to fold. Mom, you can't do this to me. I have exams next week. I need to concentrate on my studies. Great, I said. Studying is exactly what you should be doing at university. Not spending money on expensive restaurants and designer clothes. But how am I going to get places? How am I going to eat? I sitted. Emma, you're at a university with a cafeteria, public transportation, and thousands of other students who survive without an unlimited credit card. You'll figure it out. She hung up on me. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Matthew. Rachel, what the hell do you think you're doing? His voice was loud, authoritative, and sharp. It was the same tone he used during our marriage, when he wanted to make me feel small. I'm stopping payment for a daughter who disrespects me, I answered, surprising myself with how firm I sounded. You can't just cancel everything. We have an agreement. We do. And if you read the clauses, you'll discover that I have the right to suspend financial support if Emma demonstrates extreme ingratitude or disrespectful behavior. My lawyer explained that to me yesterday. That was a lie. I had not spoken to a lawyer. But Matthew did not know that. And the hesitation on his end of the line told me he did not know the details of the agreement he had signed 4 years ago either. Look, Rachel, he said after a moment. I know Emma sometimes speaks without thinking, but she's young. She's 20, Matthew. When I was 20, I was already working 2 jobs to pay for my own college. Maybe it's time for her to learn some responsibility. You're being ridiculous. Olivia is very upset about this whole situation. The mention of Olivia made me laugh. It was a short, bitter laugh. Oh, Olivia's upset? Too bad. Maybe she can use some of her inspiring class to help our daughter. You know, our financial situation doesn't allow. What financial situation? Matthew, you just bought Olivia a Mercedes. You went to Cancun last month. So don't come to me with stories about financial difficulty. Silence. Then his tone changed. It softened, became oily and manipulative. Rachel, honey, I know you're hurt about what happened yesterday, but you can't punish our daughter because of it. Don't call me honey, I said, feeling cold anger rise up my spine. And I am not punishing anyone. I am simply refusing to continue facilitating unacceptable behavior. But she needs things. How is she going to get around? How is she going to eat? The same way millions of other college students do, with responsibility and creativity. Or maybe you and Olivia can take on some of these parental responsibilities. He hung up without answering. 2 minutes later, my phone rang again. Olivia. Rachel, we need to talk. Her voice had that artificially sweet tone she used whenever she wanted something, while pretending she was being kind. About what, Olivia? About this whole situation with Emma. I know you're upset, but you need to think about her well-being. I've thought about her well-being for 20 years, I replied. Time for you to think about it too. You know our situation is complicated. Complicated how? You have money for spas, expensive clothes, and luxury cars, but not to help with your husband's daughter? There was a pause. It's not that simple, Rachel. I have my own expenses, my own responsibilities. Oh, of course. And what are your responsibilities, Olivia? Because from what I've seen, you have time to take Emma to expensive lunches and shopping trips, but you have no financial responsibility for her at all. I contribute emotionally. Emma needs a strong female figure in her life. The irony was so absurd that I almost laughed. A strong female figure? Olivia, you are a 32-year-old woman who has never held a real job, who lives off her husband's salary, and who convinced a 20-year-old girl that I am a failure because I pay the bills instead of showing off. That's not fair. You know what isn't fair? Spending 4 years paying $28,000 a year for education, plus insurance, plus credit cards, plus every other expense, while you take credit for being the fun mom. You know what isn't fair? Being called a failure by a daughter who has never had to work a day in her life. Rachel, you're being very dramatic. Dramatic? Olivia, do you want to know what's dramatic? Discovering that you spent $300 at a spa last week, money that technically came from the salary Matthew should be using to support his daughter, while I cut my own health insurance coverage to keep paying for hers. Total silence. So here's the deal, I continued. You want Emma to have nice things? Great. Pay for them. You want her to have a car? Buy her one. You want her to have a credit card? Put it in your names. But I am done being the silent ATM, while you take all the credit. You can't do this to her, Olivia screamed. For the first time, I heard real desperation in her voice. Of course I can. She is an adult, and adults need to learn that you cannot bite the hand that feeds you. I hung up and put my phone on silent. For the rest of the day, I received 14 missed calls. 8 from Emma, 4 from Matthew, and 2 from Olivia. I ignored every single one. At 6 that evening, when I got home, there was a text from Emma. Mom, please, I need the car back. I promise I'll be more respectful. I typed back. Respect is not something you promise, Emma. It is something you demonstrate through actions, not words. She replied immediately. But I need to go to work. What work? I replied. There was no answer. That night, I made dinner just for myself. Grilled salmon with asparagus, something I almost never cooked because Emma hated fish. I opened a bottle of wine I had been saving for months and sat on the small balcony of my apartment watching the sunset. For the first time in 4 years, I did not have to worry whether Emma had arrived safely at her dorm. I did not have to check if she had spent too much on the credit card. I did not have to wonder whether she was driving late at night, whether she needed groceries, whether she was upset, whether she wanted something. For the first time in 4 years, those responsibilities were no longer only mine. My phone rang at 10 that night. It was a number I did not recognize. Hello? Rachel? This is Samantha, Emma's roommate. My heart started racing. What happened? Is she okay? She's physically fine, but she's having a crisis. She's been crying for hours, saying you abandoned her. Some friends brought pizza to the room because she has no money to eat. I felt guilt stab through me, but I took a deep breath. Samantha, Emma is an adult. She has resources. There is a cafeteria at the university. There are student assistance programs. There is the possibility of getting a part-time job. She has just never needed to use any of those resources before. But she's really bad, Miss Stone. I've never seen her like this. Thank you for calling, Samantha. I know you're worried about your friend, but sometimes people need to go through difficulty in order to grow. Emma will be fine. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to grab my purse, run to the car, drive straight to the dorm, and fix everything. But another part of me, a part that had been silent for far too long, reminded me of what Emma had said at the restaurant. Failure. No, I was not a failure. I was a woman who had raised a daughter, supported a family, maintained a stable career for 2 decades, and survived a devastating divorce. I was a woman who had been disrespected and humiliated, but still had enough strength left to defend her dignity. Emma needed to learn that actions had consequences, and I needed to learn that it was not my responsibility to protect her from every consequence of her own choices. I finished my wine and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The weekend passed in relative silence. My phone kept ringing, but I blocked Matthew, Olivia, and Emma. I needed peace. I needed space to think, to process what I had done, and more importantly, to decide how I wanted to move forward. On Saturday, I did something I had not done in years. I went to the mall alone. Not because I needed anything, not because Emma needed something, not because I was shopping for a birthday, school supplies, dorm items, groceries, or practical shoes. I went simply to walk, look at store windows, and remember what it felt like to have time that belonged only to me. I stopped in front of a women's clothing store and realized I had not bought anything for myself besides basic work clothes in more than 2 years. I walked inside and tried on a navy blue dress. It cost $150, almost exactly what I spent on Emma in a normal week. I bought it without hesitation. On Sunday, I called Megan. She answered on the second ring. "How are you feeling?" she asked immediately. "Scared," I admitted. "But also free. It's strange. Has Emma called you?" "She tried." I blocked her number. "Good. Megan, do you think I did the right thing? I mean, she's my daughter." "Rachel, stop. She is your adult daughter. There is a difference. You raised a capable, intelligent, healthy person. Now it is time for her to prove it." "But what if she really can't do it on her own?" "What if she can?" Megan asked. "What if she discovers she is stronger than she thought? What if she learns to value everything you did for her all these years?" I spent Sunday cleaning my apartment. Normally, I cleaned hurriedly between Emma's calls, errands, and worries about her needs. This time, I cleaned every corner slowly. I played loud music. I even danced a little. When I was done, I looked around and realized my apartment was small, yes, but it was cozy. It was mine. On Monday, I was returning from work when I saw Matthew waiting in the parking lot of my building. He looked tired. Older than I remembered. "We need to talk," he said, getting out of his car. "No, we don't," I replied. walking past him toward the entrance. Rachel, please. 5 minutes. I stopped, but I did not turn around. 5 minutes. Emma is desperate. She can't go anywhere. She has no money for anything beyond the cafeteria. Which is exactly how millions of students live, I interrupted. She called Olivia crying, asking for financial help. That caught my attention. I turned to face him. And Matthew ran a hand through his hair. And Olivia said, our financial situation doesn't allow us to take on all of these responsibilities at once. Interesting. So the woman who is so successful and inspiring cannot help the stepdaughter she supposedly adores. It's not like that, Rachel. It's just a lot of expenses. $28,000 a year, plus insurance, plus credit cards, plus a car. Exactly, I said, feeling cold satisfaction settle inside me. It is a lot of expenses. Expenses I handled alone while you enjoyed the benefits. But you always handled it. You have a stable job. I have a stable job because I worked for it. I paid those bills because I chose to. And now I am making a different choice. Rachel, be reasonable. You can't just abandon our daughter. I did not abandon anyone. I stopped facilitating her disrespectful behavior and your dependence. There is a difference. Matthew was silent for a moment. Then he tried a different approach. Look, I know Emma said things that hurt you. She was wrong, but she's young. She didn't mean— Of course she meant it, I interrupted. She meant every word. And do you know why? Because you and Olivia spent 4 years making her believe I was inferior to you because I paid the bills instead of showing off. That's not true. It is true, Matthew. You created a system where I was the boring mom who said no and worried about money, while Olivia was the fun mom who said yes to everything. But you forgot one detail. I was the reason Olivia could say yes. He said nothing. He knew I was right. So here's what will happen, I continued. If you want Emma to have those perks, pay for them. If you want her to respect me, she will have to earn that respect back. Because I am done being treated like a failure by people who depend on me. And if we can't pay for everything, then you will have to make choices, just like me. Just like any responsible adult. Matthew looked frustrated. Rachel, you're being cruel. Cruel? Matthew. Cruel is spending 4 years letting our daughter disrespect me. Cruel is allowing your wife to humiliate me indirectly through our daughter. Cruel is treating me like an ATM while taking all the credit for being the cool parents. We never— Of course you did. When was the last time Emma thanked me for paying for her education? When was the last time she acknowledged that I sacrificed my own quality of life so she could have opportunities I never had? When was the last time you included me in any important decision about her life? He could not answer. Because we both knew the answer was never. So no, Matthew. I am not going back. Emma is intelligent and capable. It is time for her to prove it. He left without another word. I went upstairs and made dinner. I felt strangely peaceful. I was watching a documentary later that night when my phone rang from an unknown number. Hello? Mom? Emma's voice was hoarse, probably from crying. Emma. Mom, please. I need you to forgive me. I didn't mean to say those things. I was just angry. I don't know why. You know why, Emma. You said those things because they are what you really think. That's not true. I love you, Mom. You know I love you. Love and respect are different things, I said. You can love me and still consider me a failure. You can love me and still disrespect me. I don't disrespect you. You called me a failure in public. You spent 4 years comparing me unfavorably to Olivia, a woman who never contributed a penny to your upbringing. You accepted my sacrifices as if they were obligations, but never acknowledged what they meant. I heard her sob on the other end. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I forgive you, Emma. But forgiveness does not mean things go back to the way they are. What do you mean? I mean, you are an adult now. Adults take responsibility for their choices and their words. But I need the car. I need the credit card. How am I going to? You'll figure it out. Just like millions of other college students. Figure it out. Mom, please don't do this to me. I promise I'll be different. I don't want promises, Emma. I want real change. And that change starts with you taking responsibility for your own life. But I don't know how. Then it is time to learn. Mom, I love you. Please don't abandon me. I'm not abandoning you, Emma. I am giving you the opportunity to grow. To become the independent and strong person I always knew you could be. But what if I can't do it? Then you will discover you are stronger than you think. Just like I did. I hung up and cried. I cried because it hurt. I cried because it was necessary. I cried because for the first time in 20 years, I had chosen my own dignity instead of making my daughter's life easier. At 10 that night, I received a text message from an unknown number. Miss Stone, this is Josh from Northwestern. I'm Emma's friend. She asked me to tell you she got a part-time job at the university library. She wanted you to know. I smiled through the tears. Maybe it would work. Maybe she really was stronger than she thought. 3 weeks passed. Emma called regularly, but our conversations were different. She did not ask directly for money, but she always mentioned her difficulties. How hard it was to work in the library for $12 an hour. How humiliating it was to use public transportation. How her friends were starting to notice she could not join them for expensive social activities anymore. On a Thursday night, she called crying again. This time, she sounded different, more desperate, more angry. Mom, I can't take it anymore. I'm exhausted from working and studying. I barely have time to sleep. My classmates are getting better grades because they can focus only on school. I'm hurting my future because of your hurt pride. My hurt pride? I repeated, feeling the familiar anger rise. Yes, you're punishing me because I hurt your feelings. But that's not fair, Mom. I'm your daughter. You should support me unconditionally. Unconditional support, I muttered. Emma, do you know how many times I worked late to pay your bills? How many times I canceled personal plans to meet your needs? How many times I sacrificed things I wanted so you could have everything? I know, Mom, and I'm grateful. No, you are not. You never were. You always accepted my sacrifices as if they were natural obligations, as if I owed them to you. But you do. You're my mother. And there it was, the raw truth she had never admitted before. In her mind, I owed her everything simply because she existed. Emma, I said, my voice becoming firmer. I raised you for 20 years. I supported you, educated you, protected you, and loved you. I fulfilled my obligations as a mother. You are an adult now. My obligations have ended. You can't do this. Other mothers don't do this. Other daughters do not call their mothers failures in public. I apologized for that 1,000 times. Apologizing does not erase what was said. It does not erase years of disrespect and ingratitude. So that's it? You're going to punish me forever? I am not punishing you. I am giving you the chance to grow, to become independent, to value the things you have. But I don't want to be independent yet. I want to finish my education in peace. And you can. There are student loans, scholarships, assistance programs. There are many ways to pay for an education that do not involve depending on your failure, mother. Mom, please. No, Emma. My decision is final. You are intelligent and capable. Prove it. I hung up and realized something shocking. I no longer felt guilt. I felt relief. The next morning, I was having coffee when Olivia called me. This time, she did not even pretend to be sweet. Rachel, this needs to stop. You're being ridiculous. Good morning to you too, Olivia. Emma is suffering. She's working until she's exhausted. Her grades are falling. Her grades are falling? Interesting. She told me she was working 12 hours a week at the library. That barely counts as part-time. Well, she's under a lot of emotional stress. Emotional stress from taking on responsibilities like an adult? You're being cruel, Rachel. A real mother wouldn't do this. A real mother, I repeated. Olivia, do you want to know what a real mother does? A real mother wakes up at 5 in the morning to work overtime so she can pay for her daughter's education. A real mother gives up vacations, new clothes, and restaurant dinners so her daughter has everything she needs. I know you sacrificed. You do not know anything. You spent 4 years playing fun mom with money I earned. You took my daughter to spas that cost more than I spent on myself in 6 months. You bought her clothes that cost more than my rent. I was being generous. You were being generous with my money. Because every dollar Matthew spent on you was a dollar he did not contribute toward Emma's expenses. Olivia went quiet. Look, Rachel, she said eventually. I understand that you're upset, but you need to think about what's best for Emma. I am thinking about what is best for her. For the first time in 20 years, I am thinking about what is truly best for her in the long run. And what's best for her is suffering. What is best for her is learning that actions have consequences. That she cannot disrespect the people who love her and expect them to keep doing everything for her. But you're her mother. Exactly. I am her mother, not you. So stop pretending you care about her well-being, when what you really care about is your own convenience. That's not true. Of course it is. You liked being seen as the cool mom, but you never wanted any real responsibility. You wanted me to keep paying the bills so you could stay the favorite. Our financial situation is complicated. Your financial situation is complicated because you spend money you do not have on things you do not need. Just like Emma. Just like anyone who has never had to work for what they have. Matthew works hard. Matthew earns the same salary he earned when we were married. The difference is that now he has a wife who spends everything on frivolities instead of a wife who saved and invested. Olivia hung up. 15 minutes later, Matthew called. Rachel, Olivia is crying. You were very harsh with her. I was honest with her. There is a difference. Look, I know our situation isn't ideal, but you can't just abandon Emma. How many times do I need to say this? I did not abandon anyone. I stopped facilitating toxic behavior. Toxic? Rachel, she's our daughter. Exactly, our daughter, not just mine. So where is your part in all this? I contribute what I can. You contribute $300 a month, Matthew. 300. You spent more than that on Olivia's last birthday party. That's not fair. You earn more than me. I earn more than you. Matthew, you have been a sales manager for 15 years. I have been an accountant for 15 years. Our salaries are similar. The difference is that you spend on luxuries, and I save for responsibilities. But Olivia has needs. What needs? She is 28 years old and does not work. What needs does she have that are more important than your daughter's education? Silence. Here's the truth, Matthew. You want Emma to have everything, but you do not want to pay for anything. You want her to respect me, but you do nothing to earn respect. You want me to continue being the responsible mother, while you and Olivia stay the fun parents. It's not like that. It is exactly like that. And I am done. If you want Emma to have a car, buy her one. If you want her to have a credit card, put it in your names. If you want her to have all the perks, pay for them. But we can't pay for everything at once. Then make choices, just like me. Just like any responsible adult. Rachel, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. For the first time in 4 years, I am being completely reasonable. I hung up and sat quietly for a few minutes. Then I did something I had not done in years. I called the beauty salon and scheduled a haircut and color. Then I called the gym near my apartment and signed up for yoga classes. That afternoon, I went to the mall and bought 3 new dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and a makeup set. I spent $800, exactly what I used to spend on Emma in 2 weeks. For the first time in 20 years, I spent money on myself without feeling guilty. That night, when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. There was a woman there I had not seen in decades. A woman who was not exhausted. A woman who was not worried. A woman who was not sacrificing every breath, every dollar, every minute for someone else. There was a woman who was finally living her own life. My phone rang. It was Emma again. This time, I did not answer. She left a voicemail. Mom, please call me back. I need to talk to you. Something happened. I deleted it before listening to the end. Whatever the emergency was, she could solve it herself. Or she could call Matthew and Olivia. Or she could find an adult solution. For the first time in 20 years, Emma's problems were not automatically my problems. And that feeling was liberating in a way I had never imagined. 2 months passed. My life changed in ways I never thought possible. I attended yoga classes 3 times a week. I enrolled in a ballroom dancing course on Saturdays, and for the first time in years, I started going out with friends. My coworker Melissa invited me to happy hour on a Friday. I had always declined invitations like that because I needed to be available for Emma's calls. This time, I said yes. Rachel, you're different, Melissa said, as we drank martinis at a sophisticated downtown bar. More present, more you. More me, I repeated, smiling. Funny. I had forgotten who me was without just being Emma's mom. And how does it feel? Scary, I admitted. But also free. That was the night I met Steve. He was at the bar with coworkers. He was an architect, 45 years old, with a smile that made me feel butterflies for the first time in a decade. Can I offer you a drink? He asked when Melissa went to the restroom. I already have one, I replied, raising my martini. Then can I keep you company while you finish it? We talked for 2 hours. He was intelligent, funny, and he treated me like my opinions mattered. When he asked for my number, I hesitated for only a second before saying yes. Do you have children? I asked, when he called me the following Sunday. I have a 16-year-old son. He lives with his mother, but I spend weekends with him. And you? I have a 20-year-old daughter. She's in college. Ah, so you're in the empty nest phase. How are you handling it? Better than I expected, I answered. And I realized it was true. Our first date, was dinner at an Italian restaurant. Steve was a gentleman. He opened the car door for me, pulled out my chair, and asked about my work, my hobbies, my dreams. How long had it been since someone asked me about my dreams? "You seem surprised," he said, after I told him about my recent promotion at work. "Surprised about what?" "About the fact that someone is interested in you as a person, not just as a mother." He had hit the nail exactly on the head. During my marriage, Matthew never showed real interest in me as an individual. I was the wife, the mother, the person who organized his life. My identity had become completely defined by what I did for other people. "You're right," I admitted. "It has been a long time since someone saw me as Rachel. Just Rachel." "Well," Steve said, taking my hand, "I would like to get to know this Rachel better." Meanwhile, Emma's calls continued, but they became less frequent. She had stopped crying and begging and replaced it with resentment. "Mom, I hope you're happy," she said one Tuesday night. "I got a student loan to cover the expenses you refused to pay." "Great," I replied. "That is exactly what you should have done from the beginning." "You don't understand. I'll graduate owing $50,000. This will affect my whole life." "Emma, most college students graduate owing money. It is normal. But it didn't have to be this way. You could have continued helping." "I could have. But I chose not to." "Why? Just to punish me?" "To teach you independence. To teach you responsibility. To teach you that you cannot treat people badly and expect them to keep making your life easier." "But $50,000, Mom? That is less than I have already spent on you in the last 2 years," I said calmly. "And at least now you will value your education because you are paying for it." "You've changed," she said. There was something different in her voice. Not desperation. Not anger. Recognition. "Yes," I said. "I changed. And that change is permanent. I'm going to have to work for years to pay this off. Welcome to adult life, Emma." She hung up without saying goodbye. I was not bothered. She was beginning to understand that this was not temporary. I was not going back on my decision. She really would have to take responsibility for her own life. 3 weeks later, I was leaving the cinema with Steve when my phone rang. It was Matthew. "Rachel, we need to talk urgently." "No, we don't." But there was something in his voice that made me hesitate. "What happened?" "Olivia is pregnant again." I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. And our financial situation is going to get even more complicated. We won't be able to help Emma with anything in the coming years. "Matthew, that is not my problem. But it is Emma's problem. She's counting on our help." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before deciding to have another child." "Rachel, be understanding. You know how expensive it is to have a baby." "I know. I had a daughter and raised her alone for 20 years. You didn't raise her alone." "Of course I did. Financially, emotionally, practically. You were physically present sometimes, but I did all the heavy lifting." "That's not true." "It is true, Matthew, and you know it is. So do not call me asking for understanding for a situation you created." "But Emma is an adult. She will have to figure out how to deal with this, just like any other adult." "Rachel, please. No, you made adult decisions. Now deal with the adult consequences." I hung up. Steve was watching me with quiet curiosity. "Family problem?" he asked. "Ex-family problem," I replied. "They are discovering that being an adult is difficult." "And how do you feel about that?" I thought about it for a moment, relieved. For the first time in 20 years, their problems are not automatically my problems. Steve smiled. "You are a very strong woman, Rachel." "I am learning to be," I said. A week later, I was at work when my boss, Diane, called me into her office. "Rachel, I want to offer you a promotion. Senior accounting manager. It comes with a 20% salary increase, but also more responsibility and some travel." A year earlier, I would have declined immediately. More responsibility and travel meant less availability for Emma. It meant I might not be there for her calls, her emergencies, her requests, her life. But now I said, "I accept." Diane looked surprised. "Are you sure? I know you always prioritized flexibility, because of your daughter." "My daughter is an adult now. It is time for me to prioritize my career." Diane smiled. "Good. You deserve this, Rachel. You have always been one of our most dedicated employees." When I left her office, I felt a kind of euphoria I had not experienced in decades. Not just because of the money. Because of the recognition. Someone had noticed my work. Someone had valued my dedication. That night, I called Steve to share the news. "Then we're celebrating," he said. "Dinner somewhere special." "I'd love that." "Rachel?" Yes? I'm proud of you. I know this transition hasn't been easy. It hasn't, I admitted. But it has been necessary. And you are doing incredibly well. For the first time in 20 years, someone was proud of me. Not because I was a good mother, not because I sacrificed for others, but because I was taking care of myself and making hard, necessary choices. That night, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. I was thinner, better dressed, more confident. There was light in my eyes that I had not seen in years. I was finally living my own life. And it was a good life. My phone rang. It was Emma. This time, I answered. Mom, I heard you were promoted. Congratulations. Thank you, I replied, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. I wanted to talk to you about some things. Can I visit you this weekend? Sure, but it will have to be Saturday afternoon. I have plans Friday and Sunday. Plans? I'm dating someone. And I have dance class on Sunday. There was a long silence. Mom? Yes? You really have changed, haven't you? Completely. Forever? Forever. Another silence. Okay, I'll come Saturday afternoon. When I hung up, I realized I did not feel anxious about her visit. I did not feel guilt or expectation. I felt curiosity about what she had to say. For the first time in our relationship, I felt like I was in control. Emma arrived at my apartment at 2 o'clock that Saturday afternoon. When I opened the door, I almost did not recognize her. She was thinner, her hair was simpler. She wore jeans and a basic t-shirt instead of the designer clothes she used to favor. Hi, Mom, she said hesitantly. Hi, sweetheart, come in. She stepped inside, looked around, and stopped. Wow, you redecorated. I changed a few things, I said casually. In truth, I had bought new furniture, painted the walls, and added artwork. The apartment was almost unrecognizable. More adult, more elegant, more mine. It's beautiful, she said. For the first time in years, I heard genuine admiration in her voice. Very sophisticated. Thank you. Would you like coffee or water? Coffee is good. I made coffee with my new machine, another gift I had bought for myself. Then we sat in the living room. Mom, Emma began, her hands shaking slightly. I wanted to apologize to you, not just for what I said at the restaurant, for everything, for the way I treated you all these years. It's okay, I said, keeping my voice neutral. No, it's not okay. I was horrible to you. I said terrible things. I disrespected you. I treated you like you were an employee, not my mother. You're right, I said. You treated me badly. She looked startled by my honesty. I think I didn't realize how much you did for me, how much you sacrificed. Didn't realize, or didn't want to realize. She lowered her eyes. Probably didn't want to. It was easier to see you as the boring mom who worried about money than to admit you were holding my entire life in your hands. And now? Now I'm living on my own for the first time. I'm working 20 hours a week, studying, paying my own bills, and it is so much harder than I imagined. Welcome to adult life. Mom, I understand why you did what you did. You were trying to teach me responsibility. I was trying to teach myself self-respect, I corrected her. Responsibility was a bonus. Emma sat silently for a moment. You're really not going to go back on this, are you? No. Even if I beg? Even if I promise I'll be different? Even then. Why? I silled. Emma, you are 20 years old. In the next few years, you will graduate, get a job, maybe get married, maybe have children. You will build an adult life. I also deserve to build an adult life. But you've always been an adult. No. I have always been a mother. There is a difference. In the last few months, for the first time since you were born, I am being Rachel. Not Emma's mom. Just Rachel. And I like who Rachel is. And who is Rachel? I smiled. Rachel is a woman who works hard, who has professional ambitions, who likes to dance, who is in a healthy relationship, who has friends, and who spends money on herself without guilt. Are you dating seriously? Yes. Steve is an architect. He is kind, intelligent, and he treats me like I matter. I always treated you like you mattered, Emma protested. No, Emma, you treated me like I was useful. There is a difference. She began to cry. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Can you forgive me? I already forgave you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and it does not mean things go back to the way they were. Then how will they be? We will have to figure it out. You are an adult. I am an adult. We can have an adult relationship based on mutual respect. But I'm still your daughter. Yes, you are, And I still love you, but you are no longer my responsibility. You are your own responsibility. Emma wiped her eyes. I got a loan to cover the rest of college. I'll graduate owing $50,000. How much do most of your classmates owe? About that, she admitted. Then you are average. It is not the end of the world. Dad said he can't help, because Olivia is pregnant again. I heard. How do you feel about that? Betrayed, she said honestly. I always thought they would help me if you didn't. But when it came time to actually pay the bills, they made excuses. And has that taught you anything? It taught me Olivia isn't as perfect as I thought. It taught me it is easy to be generous with other people's money. And about me? Emma hesitated. It taught me that you weren't the failure in this story. It taught me that you were holding everything together, and I did not even realize it, and now I do. I'm sorry it took me so long. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Emma told me about her job, her classes, and how she was learning to manage money. I told her about my promotion, about Steve, about my dance classes. You seem happy, she said, as she got ready to leave. I am happy, I replied. For the first time in a long time. Do you think we can try to have a normal relationship as adults? We can try, I agreed. But it will be different, Emma. I will not be your financial safety net anymore. I will not put my life aside for your needs anymore, and I will not accept disrespect anymore. I understand, she said. And I accept. We'll see, I replied. A year has passed since that day at the Mexican restaurant. I am sitting on the balcony of my new apartment now. Yes, I moved to a bigger, nicer place. I am drinking my morning coffee while writing this story, and my life is almost unrecognizable. Emma graduated last month. She got a job at a marketing company in Chicago, earning a decent salary for a recent graduate. She still owes $50,000 in student loans, but she has a plan to pay them off in 10 years. She lives with 2 coworkers in a small but tidy apartment. Our relationship has completely changed. We talk once a week, always on Sunday afternoon. She tells me about work. I tell her about my life. There is no more drama, no more requests for money, no more comparisons with Olivia. There is mutual respect. Last month, she sent me a Mother's Day card. Inside was a 3-page letter thanking me for everything I had done for her over the years. She wrote, Mom, I know I was terrible to you for a long time. I know I did not value your sacrifices. I know I hurt you deeply, but I want you to know that today, at 21, I finally understand what you did for me. You gave me everything. Education, opportunities, unconditional love. And when I disrespected you, you still gave me the most important lesson of my life. You taught me that I am strong enough to take care of myself. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. I cried when I read it. Not from sadness, from relief. My daughter had finally grown up. Steve and I are engaged. He proposed last month during a trip to Napa Valley, a trip I never would have taken when all my energy and money were dedicated to Emma. We are getting married in the fall in a small, elegant ceremony. Emma was genuinely happy when I told her. Mom, you deserve to be happy, she said. You deserve someone who values you. There was no jealousy, no drama, just adult support. Matthew and Olivia had their second child, a boy named Ryan. I heard they are having financial difficulties now. Olivia had to go back to work part-time at a department store. The reality of life with 2 children, a high mortgage, and excessive spending finally caught up with them. Emma told me Matthew called her a few weeks ago, asking if she could lend money to help with the baby's expenses. She said no. Dad, I earn an entry-level salary, and I have student loans to pay, she told him. I can't help financially. He was upset, but she held her ground. My daughter had finally learned to set boundaries. As for me, I am a completely different person. I was promoted again. Now I am the accounting director. I earn more money than I ever imagined possible. I travel regularly for work, something I always wanted to do, but never allowed myself because I needed to be available for Emma. I have an active social life. I go out with friends. I joined a book club. I still take dance classes. Steve and I travel together, go to concerts, and have dinner at sophisticated restaurants. I have a full, rich life. I bought a new car, a hybrid SUV I had wanted for years, but could never justify buying. I renovated my wardrobe. I go to spa treatments occasionally. I spend money on myself without guilt, because I finally learned that taking care of myself is not selfish. It is necessary. Sometimes people ask if I regret the drastic decision I made. The answer is no. Not for 1 second. That decision saved my life. And ironically, It saved my relationship with my daughter. If I had continued facilitating Emma's behavior, she never would have learned independence. She never would have developed self-respect or respect for me. She never would have become the strong, capable woman she is today. And I never would have discovered who Rachel really is when she is not entirely defined by the role of mother. Today, as I write these words, I can say with certainty that I was not the failure in this story. I was the woman who made impossible sacrifices for 20 years, and, when disrespected, finally had the courage to say no more. I was the woman who chose her dignity over other people's convenience. I was the woman who realized that loving someone sometimes means letting them face the consequences of their own actions. I was the woman who decided she deserved to be treated with respect. And today, at 43, I am finally living the life I deserve. My name is Rachel. I am an accountant, a fiancée, a friend, a dancer, a traveler, and yes, a mother. But today, being a mother is only part of who I am. It is not the whole of my identity. And that, I discovered, makes me not only a happier woman, but a better mother. Sometimes the greatest lesson you can teach someone is that you will not always be there to solve their problems. Sometimes the greatest love you can show is refusing to enable someone's weakness. I am not a failure. I never was. It just took me 42 years to realize it. And now that I have realized it, no one will ever make me forget.